Well, Laura, I just want to thank you so much for being the record keeper and the historian of Philomont because
I'd
I
love
don't
for him to
know.
come by and see all my
I know
records.
I don't know what Jane and I would have done without you doing all the National Register work. So I want to thank you.
Well, I just wish I could have supplied you more and
Well,
had more
I'm pretty
time.
proud of what was created.
Okay,
I think we really did it. And we have to remember that, that's why we're trying to do this because the stories we couldn't document in the
right.
National Register stuff. You could kind of
We
relate
hit
to
on it,
some
but yeah,
things,
but you
but
couldn't.
for the most part, the National Register is about the architecture of a village or a
Yeah.
town. So for us to document some of these stories is just priceless. Okay, so I'm just going to say, Russ, that it is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, and we're going to have a discussion with Laura Bell Pearson.
Just say Laura Pearson, leave the bell
I
out. I
know,
don't use the
well, this is
bell
the
out.
family name. So Laura, thank you very much for doing this with us today. It's so important to save the stories of Philomont. So I wanted to start first with your family, your mom, your dad, and sort of how far back those generations went with arriving in Philomont. So whose family arrived first?
My mother was here. She was born and raised in Philomont on Colchester now, and it was a farm over there. It was, I think, 35 acres. That was a farm then. And but anyway, that's where she was born and raised.
And were her parents first to Philomont, or did they move here after they
Her
got
parents
married?
were here,
They were here. Okay, so she was born over there, what's now Colchester Road,
right
and then your dad's family,
down here. Oh,
this
whatever I
this
guess that would be. Yeah,
so that would be the house on the former Jeb Stewart, which
yeah,
used to be a log cabin,
right.
and then it had the addition put on, I think probably in like the mid 1800s. And that's you lived when you lived in it wasn't just a log cabin.
No, I've got a picture of the whole
Yeah,
house over
no,
there.
yeah. So it was the log cabin plus that
Oh
addition
yeah,
that was on. Yeah, because I remember that from the history of that house.
yeah.
So that's where you grew up
Because it's just what it was before the last people bought it and redid it.
when the Bazellis redid it.
Yeah,
Yeah, when they put the big addition on. Yeah, but up on the corner here, Jeb Stewart and Snickersville,
yeah.
there was a building on that corner
That
that.
was that was a New Holland shoe shop.
Mhm.
I always grew up knowing it was like a creamery. The kids would call it a creamery, and that's where my father kept his old car
Mhm.
in the garage. It was like a garage under, and then upstairs.
Oh,
But
it
that
was
was an
two
old.
levels.
Pardon?
I don't think I remember that it was two levels.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the car was on the underside,
Hmm.
and that's where they had the old shoe shop.
And then probably while you were living there or while your parents were still there, they had to take the building down because it
Yeah,
was just.
late. Yeah, because my father, I guess he would take it down.
Hmm.
Late years.
Hmm.
He got rid of the car, of course. It was an old Whippet. Then he had another Ford,
Hmm.
uh, like Carlene had one, and my dad had one.
Hmm.
Carlene would be Peg's dad. And let's see, what else did you want to know?
So growing up in that house, what were some of the stories that just growing up in Philmont with your
It was just
friends?
wonderful. I enjoyed it so much because we used to kids gathered there.
Mhm.
Sometimes we would have as many as 25, and that took care of all the kids in Philmont, I think. But they would on every day, some would show up, and we used to play cars, the little cars. They used to make roads and real towns, and I mean they'd have everything that a town would have
Mhm.
made with the road.
Mhm.
And those roads stayed there because they watered it down. It was really stationary,
Uh-huh.
stationary, so they just didn't have to redo it.
Mhm.
So they just continued to come and play.
Mhm.
And I mean the people down the road, down
So
toward
what were some, and I don't want to interrupt, but what were some of the names that we would probably recognize of some of the kids that came to play?
well, of course, Peg and Barbara,
Mhm.
and all the Leith boys, and Charlotte Lake that lived in the lake house,
Mhm.
and let me see, all of our family, the
Mhm.
boys, the two boys, and myself, or
Mhm.
three boys and myself.
Mhm.
Uh, and but anyway, the kids came from all over, all
That was
different roads.
that was the hangout place. That
It
was
was,
the
it
place to
was,
be.
it was the meeting place where everybody, when kids would come and play.
Right.
And, then we would go, then we made a playhouse in the barn,
Mhm.
or the old barn, cow
Mhm.
barn.
Mhm.
And that was upstairs in the hay mow.
Right.
And kids brought different furnitures to put in there up there to make a house up there.
So it was like
Oh.
what do they call that? The oh shoot, like clubhouse. It was almost like a
Like a
clubhouse.
clubhouse. We were young, and there was a pear tree right on the road.
Mhm.
It was one of those sugar pear trees, and we would take the pears off of that and bring it in and take it upstairs and then up in the barn, and that would be our food.
Mhm.
And then we would go to different people's gardens and bring in, like even our garden, we would bring in onions and radishes and stuff that we would carry
Mhm.
down there, and that would be our food in the barn.
That would be your lunch.
Uh-huh.
That would be your
We
lunch.
would
for the
just
day.
play down there all day. We would go in there in the morning, and we wouldn't come out until night. And we
And
did
you
that.
would
Play
go down to the water too, though, right? Would you go down to the water, the creek?
Oh
down there?
my, yes. My mother used to take us when we were small down there for little picnics,
Mhm.
and we would walk down. We thought that was the greatest thing in the world. We were going to go to the creek.
Mhm.
And then at that time, the water was deep enough. You could actually swim.
Hmm.
There were holes, like swimming holes. I mean, there was water real. And I know way back, my father used to talk about in the winter,
Mhm.
he would ice skate down there. That would freeze over, and they would skate all over the place.
Oh my
See,
goodness.
times have changed so much
Yes.
with the water level down there.
Mhm.
Of course, they put in the ponds, that pond,
Right.
Field's pond,
Mhm.
and different ones, and they took the water that was normally flowing down there, so that decreased the water supply.
Right.
But we used to have, it's like going to a big beach or something, because
Mhm.
we would go there and just play.
So that was the water that's at as you go down Jeb Stewart. How about would you guys go up to the Beaver Dam to the water the other way, like towards the Lloyd cabin, or would you
Not
just
too much. We
always go-
would walk down there and go across the swinging bridge and play down there.
Oh, the swinging bridge was down.
But we had two swinging bridges,
Oh.
one on either road.
Mhm.
But one was a better one.
Mhm.
One going toward Alvernius, the Lloyd's was the better one because it was used, and the one going the other way was more. It got old and decrepit and falling down practically, but we still played on it.
And the picture that you have of you with two other
That was my
little-
mother and my sister-in-law, Kitty.
that's the swinging bridge that was down this way.
I think it was the one going toward Lloyd's,
Oh, towards Lloyd.
because
Okay.
that was the better
Okay.
one.
Okay.
But anyway, we used to just stay down there and play all day. Mom would pack lunch and feed us, and we would run and play. It was all open. And back then, the farmers kept the fields were just all mowed. You didn't have any grown up stuff on the creek bottom. You could just walk and never worry about anything grown up.
Mhm.
It was just very, very nicely kept. And so that's why we played down there so much.
Mhm.
Now you couldn't get in there
No.
and enjoy the creek at all.
And then what would you do? I mean, if you guys went somewhere, would you go into Percival? Would you go into Winchester? Would you
Well,
go into
mainly we
Ginsburg?
were self-sufficient with gardens and things, and we had cows,
Mhm.
pigs. So later on, and when they got the stores in Percival,
Mhm.
then my father started going out and getting groceries on Saturday
Mhm.
and bringing groceries, and Peg's father did likewise, and all the others. And
Mhm.
we go get something. You get thin, you would get. You still were using your garden, but you got supplements and things like that. The
Mhm.
things you might not be able to raise, like the milk. We took care of the milk, but I mean, like other groceries.
So what would you get in Percival that you may not get at the Philomont General Store? What items do you think
Oh,
your
you mean
dad?
now?
No, back then. What do you think your dad was going in for versus something that he may not be able to get at the general
Well,
store?
at the general store then, we didn't have a lot of the meats and,
Mhm.
let's see, what should I say?
There was more dry goods, I guess.
Right,
Right. And where did he shop in Percival? What was the store?
It used to be an old Safeway,
The old Safeway,
where the old Safeway
where
was.
the town hall became. What
Yes,
became town hall?
That was, and then also the Safeway moved up towards across from Pancas too. The Safeway was there for a while too,
Where was it?
prior to going to where the town hall was.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it was there.
Uh-huh.
As you go up that road, like you're going, where Pancas Brothers and also else was across the street.
I know I should know where Packard Brothers is and I don't.
You probably wouldn't remember them either. It was an old clothing
Do you
store.
go up 690 and then make a left when you get into Percival or to the right?
You'd be to the right,
Okay.
and then it's that street like you would go. Well, they have it closed off now. It's just one way now.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Safeway used to be on that road?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I think probably close to where the new restaurant is.
Right.
In that area,
Oh, okay.
the midpoint there. But
Right.
It was on
I
the right.
always thought it was at the town hall, so
And
that's
all
interesting.
it was all the right. Town
Mhm.
hall. Oh, that was the other one on the other street going down, 7.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The
So
town
that
hall-
was kind of like a weekly thing that your dad would go in and get
there on
groceries
Saturday.
and, yep.
Yeah, that was
On a
the first
Saturday.
Safeway. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
first Safeway, and then it moved and on the other road
Right.
where the town hall is now.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one, not was the old church, but the other one.
Right. Right. Yeah, I
The
know.
first
Yeah,
one, yeah.
never should. So would you ever venture to Winchester? Because I think back then Winchester was probably still a much
We
bigger
did
town than
later on.
Leesburg was.
Yeah, later on I would go to Winchester. Mom and I always did our Christmas shopping in Winchester.
Oh, okay.
That was before I was married.
Mhm.
But later on, that was just a place you went.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty much if you needed,
Because to me, Winchester is
and
huge.
shoes.
I mean,
If you wanted to
especially
buy
compared to what
shoes and stuff like
Leesburg-
that, you had to go to Winchester.
Right. Because I mean, I feel like when I moved out to Philomont, I would always hear more of those of you who've been here a lot longer. Everybody ventured to Winchester. It didn't seem like anybody really went into Leesburg or anything. 'cause
No,
I
you
guess
pretty much.
because
If
everything
you
was in
wanted to, yeah.
Winchester.
We
Yeah.
always shopped in Winchester.
Mm.
Leesburg, the only time I went to Leesburg when I was, when I was visiting my relatives down there, I had an aunt that lived down there with her 3 girls, and then my uncle had 1 daughter,
Mhm.
and I used to go down and visit them during the summer for 2 weeks. They would come back out here and spend 2 weeks with me.
Mhm.
And then also with my uncle, his daughter was Patsy, and she was my brother's age, my oldest brother's age.
Mhm.
And she was a character. I was quite about 6 or probably 6 when I went there one time. And they had a general store as well. My uncle did there in Leesburg.
Oh.
And so she would take me down, it was on a Sunday, and set me on the counter and make me eat dill pickle. And she thought it was hilarious. She would always doing crazy things like that. But she would give me a piece of bread, absorb it all, and it would tickle me to death. And I was scared of her. If she told me to do, I did. So we came back home, back to her house, and her mother and dad said, "Where y'all been?" And she said, "Oh, I was in the store looking around, just talking to Laura." She didn't say what she did to Laura, but I didn't dare tell them.
Did you eat pickles? Did you stop eating pickles after that?
Yes, I hate dill pickles. I love sweet pickles, but I will not eat a dill pickle. And
So
whether that stems from that, I don't know.
yeah, no, I'm sure it does. I'm like that with licorice. So growing up, you attended Roselle Chapel.
I've been going since I was practically born, because Mom had the 2 boys were already in church. And then she took me, and of course Nadine after me.
Mhm.
When she had the foster children, she raised 6 foster children,
Wow.
and every one of them, they knew when Sunday came, they better be up and in church. They never missed a church day,
Mhm.
a Sunday, and likewise with us, we always went there.
And church was always, you would have like the fellowship afterwards with, did you do that back
No,
then?
no,
Did you-
no.
No.
Back then, the church was a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't have a place else to go, another church.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have a big congregation, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Sunday schools.
Wow. So where did you do the Sunday school?
We did them in different corners, and one was upstairs up there in the
in the
balcony.
balcony.
The young ones were, why we put it was a primary class up there, I guess to get away from the noise.
Mm-hmm.
And the adult class was down near the front where the organ is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the intermediates were right on the back of the church, but underneath of the balcony,
Right.
and then we had another class on the other side, facing this way. And then we had 2 on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
so-
did you have the organ back then, or a piano? Or?
Little organ,
Had the organ.
but piano mainly.
Mm-hmm.
But we had that old crank, pedal
The bell.
organ. Yeah,
Right.
I used to love to play on that
Mhm.
because we'd like to pump the organ.
Uh-huh.
And at that time it was down near front,
Mm-hmm.
but they moved it when they put the big new organ in.
And were you guys doing the picnics back then, like the annual picnics or
We,
barbecues?
yeah, we used to go to, where all did we go? We went everywhere, primarily Winchester.
To
Oh,
do
we used to
the,
go to Camp High Road.
Camp Fire.
I was trying to think where else we had to be. Sometimes right there at the church,
Mhm.
behind the church, we
Mhm.
would have nice picnics back there.
Mhm.
That was fun.
Right. So as you got a little older and you went to elementary school where?
Where the community center is.
The community center was your elementary school.
That's where I went. I started first grade there. My brother went all 7th grades there,
Mhm.
but that's where it stopped.
Right.
So, but anyway, I went there when I 1 through 3.5 because I was started 4th grade in January
Uh-huh.
when we moved to Percival
Oh, okay.
because they closed the school here because they ran out of teachers.
Okay.
They couldn't come up with a teacher. And actually, the teacher that was teaching me, her son had polio, so she had to stop and take care of him.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Blake she was not a real teacher. But the superintendent came and asked her, said, would you consider filling up the latter part of the year?
Mhm.
And she said, well, what am I going to do? Said, well, we'll just feed you the material
Mhm.
and you just make sure that they do what, that you have to do,
Mhm.
just to control them, and teach them what you know,
Right.
or what we give you. And sure enough, in January, we moved to Percival.
You were still living here, but you moved to the school in Percival. Or did you actually move to Percival?
No, the school. We
The
went to
school.
No, we never
So-
left here. I was down here
Right.
in the old house.
So what school was it in Percival? Is it
There
still?
where the community center is.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. I always forget.
There in
the community
Percival.
center. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went there until 7th grade? Or
Yeah. And then when in 8th grade, I went to Lincoln.
Lincoln. So what
Lincoln
is
High School.
now Lincoln Elementary was the high school.
That was and I graduated there in 53. Yeah.
Right. So then what did you do after you graduated?
I went to Washington. And it was Peg, no, not Peg, Barbara. Well, no. I'm sorry, they went the other way.
Mhm.
It was my sister-in-law and her sister,
Mhm.
twin sister. The three of us that her oldest sister took us to Washington.
So you guys carpooled? You would carpool?
No, we went down there to live.
Oh,
But
you
this is when we
actually-
first went down and took the exam for the government. And so then we were waiting, but at that time we moved on 16th Street in a rooming house.
Oh my goodness.
And my brother and his friend that he was in the Navy with
Mhm.
got another rooming house and they lived there.
Mhm.
And we would go out to eat dinner. We had to walk to eat
So you were on 16th Street Northwest?
northwest, all the way downtown.
All the way downtown.
Because we used to walk to work sometimes. Anyway, it was an old house.
Uh-huh.
It was right across from it was in Lafayette Square
Lafayette
from the
Square.
White House
Uh-huh.
in that vicinity, but it was across the street from there.
So you worked for the federal government then?
No, I
Oh,
worked for the FDL, for the labor union
labor union.
headquarters.
Okay.
And I was in the education department.
Okay.
And I worked there. But anyway, we started there in that old building, and then we moved on 1625 I Street,
Mhm.
and then we came from there. Then they built a new building for that. We had the merger with the CIO, so
Mhm.
the FL-CIO,
Mhm.
and then we lived I was in the headquarters there with the two.
And that's still the same headquarters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been in the building before.
Yeah. Beautiful,
Yeah.
and they have a beautiful picture. What do I want to say? Anyway, I got a picture of me standing in front of that
Mhm.
right after they finished it when we moved in.
So you got to move into that building. You actually worked in that building, the new
I
building.
worked there for, yeah.
Did you go up to the roof and I heard, did they do fireworks back then for 4th of July? Because that's how I know the building. I've been on the
No,
roof
back
for
then
the
they were doing,
fireworks.
they didn't do that.
Okay.
Uh,
So then you worked down there for
I was in DC for 5
5
years.
years.
And then when I got married, well, what happened was my sister-in-law got married first.
Mhm.
So then the three of us were together. We went over on Cedar Court in Tacoma Park. So 3 of us lived there after we left DC and
Mhm.
downtown. And then when she got married, then her sister and I lived together.
It's still in Tacoma Park?
No,
Oh.
well, in that area, right
Mhm.
down below there.
Mhm.
And then she gets married. So I went out to Maryland at my aunt's house, and I
Mhm.
lived with them.
And
So
where was that in Maryland?
Silver Spring.
Silver Spring. Okay.
And then I stayed there until I got married. And Junior picked me up every weekend and brought me home and then take me back on Sunday. for me to go back to work. And I've been living there all week.
And before you were married, he came and he picked you up. It was a very special vehicle that he picked you up in because
Well, then when the fire department, when they built the building,
Mhm.
Captain Patch gave them the money and they bought the fire truck.
Mhm.
Well, the fire truck was made in
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah. So Junior and Bob Griffith they flew to Wisconsin to drive the fire truck back. Well, Bob Griffith didn't come back he didn't bring him back. I don't know what he did, flew back earlier or whatever he did. But anyway, Junior brought the truck back. And when he did, he came into Maryland and picked me up where I was staying. And I rode home in the fire truck. And we were coming up East West Highway. And I said, "Why are you blowing the siren?" And he said, "I'm not. You are. Get your foot off of it."
Oh, because it was a button on the floor.
And I said, "Well, what's it doing over here?" And he said, "Well, that's just what it is."
Because the driver's not doing it, it's the person in the truck with you that's blowing the siren.
So here I was blowing the siren coming up East West Highway. I said, "Well, I don't have to worry because no names on the side of the truck, so nobody will know who we are." So that's how we brought the truck home.
So that was the first fire truck for the Philomont Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah, 56, yeah, it's up on the wall.
1956.
And it's out here in the building.
Yep.
But
You
the
still
wind
have it.
got hold of the building and tore it up right now. The
Yeah.
last windstorm finished it off.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's supposed to move it.
So you still the original fire truck is still on your property.
Right here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and your son Hurst is
And Hurst
been
used to,
working on it
and he drove it over to the firehouse that one time.
for the 50-year anniversary.
Uh-huh.
He put it over there.
And he used to keep it running, but it hasn't been run lately.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll have to have it transported, but
Mhm.
he's going to finish it and get it all finished up again.
Right.
And he's got the floorboards over here on top of his to put in the firehouse,
Mhm.
in the fire truck.
So then also, I guess you were married. So that was 1956 that you did that.
And I was married in 57.
In 57, which means you were back in Philomont.
Yeah.
And is that when
I lived in the house here until May of 58. Moved up in the apartment. We built apartments over the store.
So originally over the Philomont General Store, it was one large room.
Yeah, just all
above
over.
the
Well, they used to have the Red Cross used to meet up there
Mhm.
and make bandages for the war,
Mhm.
for the soldiers.
Mhm. Did the American Legion ever meet over there? Did the American Legion ever meet over there?
I could have that. I did not know that because I was too young.
Yeah.
But I remember being making. They used to have little plastic flappers that you lay the material there,
Mhm.
and this would flap over, this flap over, and
To
then it came out with a bandage.
With making the bandages.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So then when you were going to move over there, you and your husband were going to actually do like one big apartment upstairs.
Yeah, but they wouldn't let us.
But the county was like, no, you
They
have
said, no,
to
you
put
just
3
because
in.
right because
really
it's
strange.
commercially zoned.
Right.
Consequently, we were not allowed to build. We have one apartment up
Yeah.
there, so they made us have 3. We had to get an architect to come in, draw the
Mhm.
plans,
Mhm.
and I can't remember his name at the moment, but anyway, he was a very notable architect,
Mhm.
and he came in and laid it all out, and then we made. And then we moved up there. That was when they started it. I forget, but anyway, it was ready in May.
Of 58 or 59?
But we moved in 58 in May
May of 58. is when you
because they
moved up there.
started like a year before primarily.
So I'm assuming you all lived in. Did you still just use the whole top building, or did you rent out?
No,
the
I was
other?
living at home.
But once you and
he stayed with me at the house. He lived
Right.
in with me at Mom's house.
But when you finally moved over there,
Yeah.
did you use the whole? I've never asked you this before. Did you use the whole top level, or
No,
did you
no.
rent out the other apartment?
Just the front.
You lived in the front one.
Yeah, and then there was one apartment in the back that was rented out, and the one on the right hand side upstairs
Mhm.
was rented out.
Okay.
And then the one as you go up the steps and off to the right,
Mhm.
people lived there too, and elderly people lived
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
Mary Pierce was one of them, and Carly.
Mhm.
They were old ladies.
Oh. They lived upstairs in one of the apartments.
They lived in the little one.
The little one, the
Goes to the top of
efficiency.
the steps.
Yeah, the one that was my office.
Yes,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
your office.
So you lived there, and at that time it was Pearson's store.
Yeah, Pearson General Store.
And was it ran it, or who was running the store then?
My husband and his
His
brother.
brother.
And that's when Junior left there and went to DC. I mean, he went to Maryland. No, he did not. He went to Fairfax, and
Mhm.
he was started working for the county for the
Fairfax County.
Yeah, Fairfax County School Board.
So then his brother continued to.
And his brother stayed here,
Mhm,
and then he got real sick,
mhm.
and so he was having a hemorrhage, you know. But anyway, I read it. They called me. They called Junior at work, and they told me to take him to the doctor, Dr. Oliver. So I did, and got there, and he said, "Laura, you leave here, don't say anything, just drive him straight to the hospital." And so on the way there, I said, "Pom, put your wallet out on the seat and anything that I might need to get you in there."
Mhm.
So we got to the hospital, and of course, by then he was not doing too great.
Mhm.
Well, they wheeled him in, and they said, "Well, you can't sign him in because you're not a blood relative."
Mhm.
I said, "That's okay." And I took Tom's hand and I put it on top of the paper, and I said, "You're going to sign your name. I don't know what you're signing, but you're going to sign your name." And I guided his hand,
Mhm.
and that's how I got him in the hospital.
Mhm.
It was really horrible. But he was having a cerebral hemorrhage,
Oh dear.
and so he was there for quite a while. And then so he died in, let's see, 64. Yeah, because
So
I went in the post office in 64.
right, because he was running the store as well as the post office.
Right, he was the postmaster.
And then when he passed away,
Then
you became the postmaster
Right.
after that. And that
So-
was 1964.
And so I went in there then, and I had no training whatsoever. So they brought me one out of Aldi to train me after I had been there from
64.
in 64, but it was like 6 months where they
Decided to train you.
maybe it was 6 weeks. Yeah.
So you just ended up training them. Or?
So what I was doing was running to Purcellville with my book, well, the accounting book, I
Mhm.
should say.
Mhm.
Anyway, I take it over. We have to do quarterly reports and annual reports.
Mhm.
Well, I knew I was about making reports. So I knew how to put mail up because I knew the boxes
Mhm.
and everything like that, and I
Mhm.
did stuff right there.
Mhm.
But when it did something to do with the headquarters or whatever, I had to go for help.
Right.
And so he would help me, and then I would go to Lincoln. Nancy Morjani helping me too with my books.
Mhm.
And finally, that's when after that they sent me somebody to train me to do what I was already doing.
Right.
But that's how I learned the hard way.
Mhm.
But I didn't mind it. It was just it got me out of the post office. I was going on a ride in
Yeah.
my car and driving to Lincoln or driving Purcellville.
So
But
you
they-
took over from your brother-in-law,
Yeah.
and prior to him, it was your father-in-law
Father-in-law.
that was the postmaster. So you continued
And
the
prior
tradition.
to that, it was down the post office was down by Bobby Longbeam's, just
Right,
below
in
him.
between those
In
two
between
properties.
his house and the yellow house.
Yeah, there was a post office there.
Yeah,
So
the
that's
little-
kind of across from the church.
Yes.
Sort of across the street from the
Yeah,
church.
and it had an upstairs to it, believe it or not, because it was just a box. And I
Mhm.
think it had steps down front. And anyway, she was there a long time
Mhm.
prior to me. She was there prior to
Who's she?
Pauline Leaf was her name.
She was the postmaster
Prior.
after.
No, before West Pearson.
No, I know, but she would have been after who? Would she have succeeded after Tavener?
Yeah, Dave Tavener.
Dave Tavener.
Because he was right there. Just
That's where he lived.
Yeah.
The post office was in his yard. And then he
the
passed
same
away,
building,
and then
then she took
Ms.
over
Leaf
using
took
the same
over.
building.
Okay, in that building.
Uh-huh.
And then because the Pearsons took over the store, I guess is when 1940. The post office moved into the store in 1941.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's when your father-in-law was postmaster.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you were postmaster for
50 years.
50 years. So that's quite a feat. So I'm sure you have all kinds of stories. being a postmaster. So I don't know if there's any in particular that stand out in your mind. I always love the fact that I could get a letter that was just addressed to me with Philomont on it, and yet it still landed in my in the right box.
Oh, yeah, I did have a lot of those, but I knew every box. Matter of fact, I could lay in bed and recite all the boxes. Oh, and when Joan Wilt started working for me, she said, "How will I ever know?" I said, "Well, go to bed at night and visualize where the boxes are
Mhm.
and visualize the names and everything." And that's how she learned where the boxes were.
So would you say?
I
Oh,
sent I
Pardon?
sent a letter from Beijing, China to myself, said Russ 20131 USA. And it got here.
Yeah, they
from
got-
China.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Did people have street delivery at that point?
Oh, no.
Or- so it was
Just
when do you
well,
think anybody-
Purcellville actually, the rural route was out of Purcellville,
right?
and they just did. They didn't have a whole lot
Mm-hmm,
because I had the major
mm-hmm,
part,
mm-hmm.
and I got very upset. I did not like the rural route
Right,
because they were,
taking away from the
taken away from me.
Yeah,
But I fought like crazy, to keep the members, people there. And anyway, so they would say they were going to leave or something, and I would talk them out of it.
Mhm.
You have to stay with me to keep the post office
Right.
going
right.
and all like that. But yeah, it was.
So, so I'm gonna go back though to the fire department too. So when the truck came and you got married, you obviously joined the Philomont Ladies Auxiliary with I'm sure Peg and
Yeah,
Barbara and
Dixie Halls was the first president, and I think Peg was secretary. No, she was the treasurer maybe at the
Mhm.
time. And
And you all used to do, what would you say? I mean, I know it was hard for you to do events because eventually when you were postmaster, but kind of what were the events back then, other than the horse show, which we can mention as well?
well, we used to have dinners,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, with the church, within the church ladies,
Mhm.
because we combined the church pretty much with the fire department.
Right.
And then did the same thing when the horse show, when we started having the dinners and things down there, feeding the people.
Right. So the ladies from the church also helped the ladies auxiliary when it came to the horse show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, feeding
Very
everybody at the
much.
horse because
And
there
we
were
did
so
that
many
for a long
people.
time until the ladies auxiliary didn't want them anymore.
Oh, okay.
We don't need them anymore. You know what I mean? We can
Right.
stand on our own feet now.
Right.
So pretty much dismissed them from the church.
Did the church still do events though? Did they still have dinners and stuff, or
Mhm.
did they just kind of do things just within the church itself?
Yeah, they did.
Do you wanna
Did
clean up the
events.
other thing?
I got
Okay.
one right here. My eyes want to run. That's what I have.
Oh, the church. So the church did their events. Eventually, the ladies auxiliary had enough membership that they did. And back then, would you say the ladies auxiliary did an event a month, or
We were pretty active. I
you were
know.
pretty active? Because I know that at one point, Wanda, and Marjorie would say that I think there was one year you all did like 30 some events in one year because you would help with wedding, like a
Oh,
bridal
yeah.
baby shower or a wedding
Right.
or a
Any
funeral.
event,
or-
anything that was going on, we were a part of it, or did the food part. Yeah.
And was everything always done over at the
Over
firehouse
the firehouse,
in Licky,
uh-huh.
well, what is now Licky Hall? What should be Licky
Yeah.
Hall. Okay, so I was curious about, because I remember the church used to help at the horse show.
Mm.
But the horse show was really a huge
That
event.
was just very much so.
Yeah.
And we had the best judges. I mean, they were coming from and they were the better ones that you
Mhm.
could possibly get.
Mhm.
We paid for them, but we got the best in order to get the high class jumpers.
Is that when when it used to be a 2-day event, or
Uh-huh.
that's when it was a 2-day event?
Yeah.
All right. And then, Russ, why don't you want to ask a question?
Well, I'm curious. We talked to Carla Warner a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and she talked about her family in this community with very deep roots. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about when you were very young. What were the relationships that you had with Black families?
Well, starting with the Lloyds, they were the number one
Mm-hmm.
at that time because they lived over the hill from me,
Mhm.
and the girls would come down. And they would always talk and everything, and we
Mhm.
would walk back over to their place.
Yeah.
But the floor was just a dirt floor. They didn't have, and then the stove, they had a wood stove.
Mhm.
They stoked the wood. They kept them warm. And then the kitchen, I think they had some kind of a stove, but I'm not sure what they cooked on. And then the bedrooms were upstairs, but quite small.
Mhm. It's a log cabin that is
Yes,
still today. Yeah.
which is still there today, but you couldn't see it from the road because it was almost top level with the, right here on the ground, and then it was the roof, but you had to go down a bank to get in the door. I remember when Karen was born, she was quite young, and we went over there, and Karen had her in her arms because she wasn't walking, and so I said, Karen, let me carry her because you might fall. I wasn't going to fall, but she might fall. But I carried her in my arms down to the door. And I always remembered that. It was very special.
So you had the Lloyds and then the Warners, I guess.
Then the Warners, yeah, I think they played ball, how we really got associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, and then the Lloyd boy, they kind of were together.
Mm-hmm.
And then where Barbara Irvin lived down there, next to Pagan White House, the one that they renovated.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's where the Irwins lived.
Mm-hmm.
And Barbara's family had, back then you didn't have TV, everybody didn't have a TV. So they had a small TV. And people would go there, kids would go there to watch TV. I remember sitting on steps like you were in a theater, going upstairs. And the Lloyds, they would be there, you know.
Everybody would be there. Yeah. That's
And
really neat.
it was really, really neat.
So did Mary
Warner
Warner
worked for people.
was that when she worked at Delta? No, did she work at Delta? Did she?
She did later on.
Later on.
Well, I think Sarah did primarily. Sarah worked for me for a while to take care of the kids when I was downstairs.
Right.
I did the ironing
Right.
for me. For the girls who wore dresses back then, they were.
Mhm.
Did they wear little like slacks and things like that, like they do?
I didn't wear a pair of pants till I was like 11 or 12. So
I didn't either. I was not either. I remember my first pair when I went to ZC and I was riding the horses down there, and I think I was 8 years old. Was my first pair. And I came home and said, "Oh, Mom, look." But anyway, I was so excited that I could actually, because she had 3 boys, and she, this girl, you got to wear a dress.
Same with me.
And
3
every day I
boys.
went outside to play, I was playing in a dress.
I know.
Drove me batty.
I know. I agree. I had the same thing. 3
But
boys.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what happened back then.
So you were doing the post office and raising your kids, and at that point, did your kids went to Banneker? Would they?
No.
No.
They went to No, my kids went to Lincoln.
Oh, because it had gone to an elementary school at that
Yeah.
point. Okay.
So
that's great.
they started in Lincoln.
Okay.
And then they went from
Lincoln to
Blue Ridge,
Blue Ridge to Valley. Right.
was Valley then, yeah.
Right. Well, one of the things I really want to emphasize too, because it's something that we learned when we were doing the National Register work, and that was the fact that, the house that we're in right now is a house that you and your husband built, after you were in the, lived above the store.
Yeah.
You built here, and the original house that was here was in pretty bad shape, so it got torn down.
Yeah.
It can be seen in
We had
have a picture.
thought about just doing the house and living there, but it was just too much work.
And it was really on the road.
It was on the road.
It was what, maybe 10 feet
Well,
off the road?
we just had like a sidewalk type thing from there to the road. There
Yeah.
was a fence right there.
And we have pictures. We have a picture.
Yeah,
of
you
it.
have a picture right
Yeah.
there.
I think there's actually a picture of it in the National Register.
Yeah, that's
as
the
well. But you all built, and at that time it was quite the fashion to build the brick ramblers.
Yeah, back then they were building on Ramblers.
Mhm.
But they said, well, why don't you face the road? I said, what do I want to look at? The cars going down the road? No, I want to look at the mountain. And back
Yeah.
then it was beautiful because you didn't have the obstruction. You just had
Yes.
beautiful trees.
Beautiful view.
And the view and the mountain was
At least
gorgeous.
even with the new houses, you can still see the beautiful mountains.
Yeah,
which is,
but it was
which is
just a
good.
moment. You could just see the mountain.
And I can imagine. But if I remember, you went into Winchester to meet with the builder to pick where did you go to? Remember there was the book that you picked your model that you built.
He came
here?
right here.
Oh, he came to you. Okay.
Um,
And you picked this because you wanted to be able to keep everything on one level, even
Yeah.
though you have the basement.
because he said, when we get old, we want 1 floor. We don't want to have to deal with building another or buying another one. We'll
Mhm.
just keep this as the one house.
So you had your Rambler, and then of course, and I can't remember his name right
The
now,
Hilton, Hearst
uh,
Milholland.
but Harrison Milton built two more, which was the Emmonson's house now, and
Well, that
this
was
house.
his house.
That was his house, but didn't he build this one too? Did he build the Rambler over
Well,
here?
Lucy Brown and Celine Gifford lived in one next to the
But
church.
didn't Hearst Milholland build it? Did he have
You
it
know,
built?
no,
Oh, he didn't
they
have
had
it built.
different builders.
Okay.
Well, actually, mine was a different builder.
Yeah.
They had the different, but theirs very, they were the same.
And then of course Bobby Longerbeam built his own
Right,
beautifully built brick Rambler.
because his
on
boys did all
own.
the
Yeah, he was
masonry
able
and
to.
stuff like
You
that.
know, I told you that I went after I asked you how you got your model of this to build a Rambler, that I had asked Bobby Longerbeam, Bobby, did you use plans to build this Rambler? He goes, nope. He just knew what he was doing. He just, he built it on his own. So
Yeah, and the boys.
and the boys, yeah, yeah.
They,
So I know 50 years of being a postmaster. Is there something? I mean, obviously you saw a lot of changes out here. Can you think of just in general, just maybe not always happy stories,
more houses.
but more houses.
Everybody asked me about that. Did I mind the building? And I said, no, I loved it. I said, more than people there. I was different from most people. Most of
Because you
them
wanted
were-
more PO boxes.
I just wanted, yeah, maybe that's what it was. But I had 100. But anyway, it was still good.
Oh, you had actually you just said that. So you had 100 PO boxes
Uh-huh.
at that time, but we have what, over 200?
We started out with 45 when I first went in there,
Mhm,
but I think it went to 100.
100, and now it's isn't it over 200?
I don't know what she has. I haven't talked with
Yeah,
her.
I think it's at least 200. I
Should
think.
be.
Yeah,
Of
because
course,
you
they
got
do a
the
lot
extra-
of people on the route, and some of them do dual.
Yeah.
Some of them play dual
Some
on the
people do
route, and
both.
also the PO box.
So is there anything in particular, just working in the store, working,
The main thing with the post office with me was I traveled because I was a secretary for the state of Virginia,
Mhm.
900 postmasters, and I was the secretary of the state.
Oh, okay.
And I went to all the conventions. I went to all the states, and local and state and national. I never went international.
So who was your backup when you did all that?
Peg,
Oh, Peg was your backup.
well, I had several,
Hawes.
but Peggy Hawes was the best one I ever had. She could walk in there behind me. I would walk out, and I could go back in, and it was right to the letter. I couldn't tell whether I'd been there or she'd been there, and she was always so perfect.
So how long did she do that for you? How many years?
That's 7 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't realize Peggy.
But she said that it was wonderful that I used her because she was able to draw Social Security because, I mean, otherwise, if she had to work for me, she would have been able to on her own.
Right,
It would have been just Truman's.
right. Oh, that's interesting.
But she always was excited about the time but she was so perfect.
Mhm.
I had others on like Audrey Warren and Louise Kephart was my first one that worked for me.
Mhm.
She's the one that killed in the wreck right here on the road.
Oh,
Anyway, Ruby Parks was the next one. That was Russell Parks' wife. She's I was trying to think who else.
I can't think of the park's name right now, but.
We got Parks up here,
Yeah.
going up this road,
Mhm.
up on Brick House up on the right, on the
Mhm.
left. I mean, her husband worked in the Safeway personnel. Matter of fact, he was the manager there.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, yeah, it was a good. Well, what I did, I went to 13 states. Yeah,
With
went
being
to-
secretary, you traveled to 13 different states?
and I went to Puerto Rico
Oh,
and Hawaii.
wow.
But that was with the Business Professional Women in Fulton County.
Mhm.
I was president there, vice president, president. I was secretary there, and then that's what I went to Hawaii was with them.
Mhm.
Did West go with you to Hawaii?
No, he didn't leave him home to take care of the kids. I did all my traveling by myself. That was my getaway.
Yeah. Her vacation.
I loved it
Oh my goodness.
because he didn't mind, but I had so many good friends.
So how long did that continue, your traveling? When do you sort of feel like it sort of fell off that you weren't doing that because you weren't secretary anymore? Or?
Well, I think they closed,
Mhm.
just like everything else I went to. ladies auxiliary, the UMW is now gone, and that women's group down there is gone. Now, then the postmaster, they finished up when I retired.
Right.
That was the end of the post office as far as I was concerned.
But
Because they
when-
switched over to everything else that was not right.
Yeah.
They-
But when you were made postmaster, you were the last appointed
Yeah,
postmaster.
Gronowski, yeah, he was the postmaster general.
Right. So you were the last, was it like the last?
He was the last of them, because then after that, it had to go through the president, and all that stuff.
Right. Well, 50 years as postmaster, that's,
Under Gronowski, he was the postmaster general at that time. But I was the last one appointed under his supervision, I guess.
So in general, I mean, I know you jotted down some stories. Can you think of just life in general in Philomont over the years, whether when you were growing up or
Oh, it
after
was
you got
wonderful.
married or?
I think I enjoyed every minute. I could almost put a pebble on every one of them. From the time I was born until I got married, it was just constant or went to DC. I knew my brother went in the service. He was in the Navy. The other one didn't go in the service, but Don did. Don went in the Army. And Tom was 4 years and Don was 2 years. But that's when Tom came out of the Navy. That's when we got together. He came in. We were going to have, let's see, Kitty and I were going to the prom. And I had a date, of course, I had Junior. I called him Junior, West. But anyway, she didn't have a date. I said, well, my brother's coming home from the service, so furlough. I tell you what, he'll take you. I didn't say, would you like to take him? So anyway, when he came home, I introduced him to Kitty. He had never met her. So he took her to the prom. So there were the four of us. We had the best time in the world.
And did your brother buy the house back?
Yes.
Yeah. So your family home changed hands.
Yeah.
But then your brother
bought it.
bought it back.
Uh-huh.
So he's the one who sold it to the Bazzellis. Is he the one that sold it to the Bazzellis? Yeah. So there were Pearsons in that home for a very long time.
Yeah, it was the Dawson place in the beginning. My grandfather bought it in World War II.
Right.
I mean, World War One. Excuse me.
Okay.
World War One.
World War One.
When they moved here, because they were Falkier over that area prior to coming here.
So he came here after the war. So after he got back from was he in the war?
No, he was a farmer.
Okay.
And but anyway, he bought the house, and there was called Mr. Dawson. It was always with the Dawson's house. We always called it the house. And when it was so funny when Pat and Patty bought the lake house, they said you can't use that as the house anymore. We want it. We wanted to call it the lake house or the house. So they acquired that because you don't need it anymore. So that was funny too.
I'd like to ask you a question. The roast beef pit barbecue.
Yes.
And people always remember where they were, like on 9/11 or.
I can tell you where I was.
Can you tell me where you were? I'd like to
The
hear
exact
that.
minute.
With the explosion?
Yes.
Oh.
Standing in the post office, the glass, the window, the glass one right there, and I saw it. And the whole store, that part, we shook. It actually shook the store. It was such a loud explosion. And I can remember that just like it was yesterday. It was awful.
I was going to say.
Because we ran out back to see what was going on.
I ran out the back door to make sure everybody was alive. But I
I
remember.
got a phone call from Mary Warner.
Did you?
Oh, did you?
I wasn't home. She called me and left a message on my machine that said, Mr. Barry, there's been a small explosion in Philomont. Goodbye.
Oh, God, no. That was enough to make it. What did you think when you heard it?
I always tell the story because I was behind the counter at the store, and I knew there was somebody standing in front of me.
Yeah.
I could not remember who it was. I mean, I think that's just something about an explosion or something, or just the shock of it. It literally was like a year or two later that Cookie Good was in the store with me, and we started talking about it. And she goes, no, I remember that. I was standing right here. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So it was Cookie with
you were the one standing across. I could not for the life
Isn't that
of
curious?
me, because the second it went off, I was out the back door, and like saying, "Is everybody all right?" And waiting for people to talk.
So I
Gil
ran right
and
behind
Truman,
you.
and Gil and Van Hoddle, hearing their voices, and then looking back at my building, at the beautiful building with all my broken windows, but I swear it took me almost 2 years to figure out,
Who the
and
cookie
it was only
was.
because Cookie told me.
Oh,
That
isn't
she was
that
like, "Yeah, I
cute?
was standing right here." So that was such a crazy, crazy
That was a
moment
real experience.
for many people.
And it was an awful thing
It was.
because it stopped us from having any more pit barbecue
Yeah,
dinners.
yeah.
And we used something similar, but it wasn't anything
It was
like it.
never the same. No, it was never the
It was
same.
never the same.
Never the same. But I think,
And Junior always cut up the meat when they would bring in the meat.
Mhm.
He was always the meat cutter, and I don't know who helped him. You probably helped him. I don't know if others helped him. But
Yeah,
anyway,
we had two slicers. We had the two slicers that were
Yeah.
going. Yeah, yeah.
and after when they took the meat out of the pit, and Karen was standing there, and they said, "These are no good, throw them away." Well, Karen, so she brought two home, thinking they were going to be all right, that they were cooked good or whatever, and they were fine.
Why
So
did they
we
think
ate
they
the
weren't
last.
good? Why would they try to throw them away?
They said they weren't any good.
Hmm.
Then they were probably thinking they didn't cook through or what. I don't know what the bottom line was, but I know Karen brought one home.
Mhm.
But she says they should be okay, and because you could tell by the aluminum foil that was wrapped around
Yeah.
it. But anyway, she opened it up and she looked at it. She said, "Well, we'll cook it and see, and taste it, see if it tastes all right." And it did.
Hmm.
So we can say we ate the last beef out of the pit barbecue.
So the
and that
pit
was
beef
it.
barbecue and the horse show, they were really
That was
huge
it.
events. They were just
Pretty
really,
much,
really
yeah.
big events. And I think the unfortunate thing is as it got more grown up out here, so many more other events
Do
will
you
start
know
taking
if
place.
it would take place now, that pit barbecue would have really gone over big time.
Hmm.
But a lot of people came from all over. They came out
came
of
from all
Purcellville,
over.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and we had good attendance to the
There were
mine.
people who came. I think there were even some people that came from over the mountain because they knew
Oh,
about it,
yeah, a
whether it
lot
was
of
the
them.
Blue Ridge, fire house people
Yeah, the
there.
different fire companies supported it.
Yeah, it was a big event. It
Yeah.
was. I mean, I know that I've heard. I don't know if this is while I was doing it or helping with it, but I mean, I think sometimes there were like over 1,000 people that would be fed.
Oh, yes, I remember. It was very
Mhm.
much.
It was just amazing, and the fact that the horse show used to be a 2-day event.
Right.
With just top-notch judges.
And we used to serve the ladies always served the judges in the firehouse
Mhm.
upstairs because we wanted them to be separated from the riders,
Well, the fact that they even got a break to be able to do that.
Oh, and
because
they loved
didn't,
that too.
Yeah, because
And
they
we
didn't
fed
get
them
that later.
fried chicken, real fried chicken. Mary Warner fried,
Oh.
and Mary Pearson. Let's see, who else? Different ones. The real good cooks
Mm-hmm.
would fry the chicken,
Mm.
and oh, did they love that fried chicken?
Mm.
And it was excellent.
What year was the horse show first here at our horse show grounds?
When it was, what was it? Was it
61,
I think it was 61,
61 or
yeah.
62.
It was 61 or 60. It was right. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
I have it over there.
Yeah. No, I have. We do
And
have it written
you have
down.
it written down as well.
Because I think the deed was 1961.
And how long had it been going on prior to that?
That was it.
No, 1957 was
Oh.
the first one on Griffin Farm.
Oh,
Griffin Farm.
yeah.
Griffin
That
Farm.
we never had any horse shows then. We just had just the meetings and things like that at the firehouse.
No, but when the horse show originally began, it was
Oh.
at Bob Griffin's farm,
Yeah,
and then I guess he sold the farm,
right.
and so that's why they got
That's what
the,
we
the
bought
horse
from
show
Mary
ground.
Pearson,
Yeah,
from
that's
Frank
why.
Pearson.
Yeah.
Started down here. Yeah.
And Frank Pierce had said that I guess he used to keep cows on that
Oh, yeah,
property,
I
and he said he
remember.
was ready to retire from
Mhm.
that, and that's why he put the 7 acres up for sale
Right.
to the fire department.
And that was good for us because we were able to
It wasn't
acquire
too
it.
far. Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect.
And then then Bob Griffith put up all the fencing for the horse show. And when we folded to move down here, he took all the jumps and put them out in his house. He lived right down there where Squirrel is, only it was right on the road.
Mm-hmm.
That house had burned.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the night it burned, I was living up in the apartment, and Junior had gone down to fight the fire, and he left in a fire truck, and the kids and I stood at the back window and watched it burn. But it was awful.
So that house was on Squirrel's property?
Oh, right on the road.
Oh,
There was a schoolhouse right here.
That was
the one
schoolhouse.
that burned, yeah,
Uh-huh.
the first one.
right.
And then the Bob Griffith's house. And up on the knoll was the second school.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the third one up here.
Right. The community center was a third school. Yeah. And then the community center that was a school did become a private residence for a little bit.
Oh, yes,
And then it became the community center.
Right,
I
yeah.
guess in the 80s.
Barbara Irwin and her family moved there.
Yeah.
After, but they had a preacher, that preached there on Saturday. And, so he was, I think it was Mr. Manuel, M-E-B-E Manuel, yeah,
Mhm.
was the preacher there. And he
He
lived
preached
down,
at what is now the community center?
yeah,
Oh.
he lived downstairs. His living quarters were there and his services were upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And we would always go on Sunday night. We would go one night church, but we would because they sang. I mean, it was beautiful. We just had the greatest time.
What kind of a preacher was he? Was he a
7-Day Adventist.
Oh, okay. So you would go to church at
We go there on
morning and then go there and
yeah,
go there on the
and
night.
go here, yeah. But he had his services on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Before
So
he had his
Seventh-day
one
Adventist,
downstairs,
right,
yeah.
okay.
The one he had in the evening was downstairs, was there, but in the evening.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think, is there anything?
Did you ever shoot at the turkey shoot?
I did not, but my husband was there every Saturday night and the girls were with him sometimes. So they
Did the
were-
girls shoot?
Oh, yeah, Karen did. Gwenda, but Karen was right there with him.
Mhm,
You know, she was quite young, but she
Mhm.
still, she liked to do that.
mhm. They did that. That was another, according to Stanley Jr., that was another really
That was a big
money
event. That
maker.
was the big event
Yeah.
at that time.
I had no idea what a moneymaker that was.
But Junior used to teach me how to shoot the gun, the
Mhm.
rifle. I loved that rifle. And first time I shot it, I went, "What's it doing? It's knocking me over." But anyway,
Because you could bring your own rifles, or shotguns, whatever, but you had to use the ammunition
They're not-
provided,
right,
their
uh-huh.
ammunition.
uh,
Yeah, I never understood that either, but then I guess I found out that it could be,
For safety reasons.
for
Right.
safety reasons and just to keep the level playing field. and-
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, Junior loved those turkey shoots. When they folded, he just about folded.
Yeah. Well, no,
I have a-
actually, they folded after we moved here.
Pardon?
It folded after we moved
I say,
here.
but he,
Yeah, because I remember my dogs went crazy with the shooting. So
I have a tough question for you.
what,
How many different pastors have you had at the Methodist Church?
pastors here. First one would have been Lupton Simpson that I remember.
I know there's a hard.
Probably about 5 or 6, maybe 6.
Mhm.
6 since you were like,
Since
In
in the
your
beginning of
20s,
what I
or-
know. There
or
might have
that you
been,
remember.
Lupton Simpson was the older one, I think. It might have been something Dice way back.
But did every single one of them always do Bluemont and Hillsborough?
Yeah, they always, that's how it was, used to be. No, that one preacher had 6 churches.
Oh my gosh.
And then that was in the beginning. And
What
then,
time was the first service? Like 7 o'clock in the morning?
No, they alternated, I think,
Oh.
3 and 3, like,
Oh.
not every Sunday you would have services.
Oh, okay. Because I remember when I first moved here, I think he would do Philomont, Bluemont, and I thought he went to Hillsborough.
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah.
And then I guess Hillsborough dropped off, and then he was just doing Philomont and Bluemont.
We used to have Round Hill.
Oh, Round Hill.
Yeah, it was Philmont, Bluemont, and Round
Oh, Round
Hill.
Hill. Okay, maybe it wasn't Hillsborough.
And then it was Hillsborough.
Oh, it was Hillsborough.
And then Hillsborough dropped off, so then he had 3. Now it's down to 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is ancient history, but when was the church moved back to its present location?
Was it was down there,
You're McCliggett's.
yeah,
On
down
their,
there. close
at
to-
their driveway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right in there. What's it called? That stone house that sits up on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
That's called the
Oh,
old
Shelburne.
Roselle.
Shelburne.
Yeah, Shelburne
Shelburne.
was the old Roselle house.
Yes.
A preacher came from England and preached there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how,
At the house or at the church when it was
At
still
the
there?
house, I
At the
think.
house. Okay.
in the beginning. And, but the Roselle's been there. They owned it right from day one.
But I think it was what 1891.
There was,
1891 when it was rebuilt.
And back to the fire department, there was an event that occurred that spurred people's interest in getting a fire department started here in Philomont, or something happened that caused the men in this community to say we need to have a fire department here.
Where was that fire? And that's when General Patch,
Yeah. When
Captain Patch, came to Pomp.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first president, of course. But Captain Patch came to him and says, if we should have a bad fire in Philomont, and he was concerned about their acreage, their buildings. He said, what would we do? How can we go about getting a fire truck and getting something set up here?
Mhm.
So he said, well, if I give you the money, and you'll make sure that they get a fire truck and get a building started and pumped in. And he united they would have the first meetings in the store. That's
Mhm.
where they having the first farm meetings,
Mhm.
firemen's meetings.
Mhm.
And so that's how they broke out from there. And all the young guys, like Peg's three brothers, my brother, and all the young people in town,
Mhm.
and Longer Bean boys, all of them, they got together and worked at night and
Mhm.
day because they
Mhm.
come in from their jobs.
Yeah,
and
because they were working during the
and then
day.
the weekends they
Yeah.
worked till they got it finished.
Yeah. But Russ, I kind of agree with you. I thought I had heard that maybe there might have been, but it might have been more than one situation that got them started to say, for Captain Patch to think to himself,
Their
this is an
place,
issue.
but there
We
was a
really-
fire, but I don't know where it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
I
think
don't
we have that
remember.
documented anywhere.
But I do know that's initiated. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was really wonderful for him to reach into his wallet and bank account and pull out
Oh yeah. Well, he had it. Didn't have it.
$18,500, I believe.
Now the Patch House was over here at Robert DeVos.
The butcher's run. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. That was General Patch. His mother and father lived there, but he lived on 611. You know where this road comes out on 611. The one if you go past my house,
Mhm.
go down, and you go out and come out on 611.
Right.
Off to the left, there's a stone house there, like a
Mhm.
rambler type.
Mhm.
It's a one story.
To drive by that and look at it.
It's
And
a
that's where
stone.
Captain
It's a
Patch
stone
lived.
house. He built that.
Well, was that all the same property though back then? Did General Patch own all of that?
Oh,
All
yeah.
the way to St. Louis,
All
all the
over
way
the
to
place.
611.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
that wasn't broken down until much later.
Okay. And Billy's parents, the
Oh yeah, Billy
Ricas,
lived right
worked
on the
for-
road down here. I remember when they moved there,
Yeah,
and his father worked for
for
General
General
Patch.
Patch.
He was mechanic or whatever.
Yep.
It has a name. And then his mother worked for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're the ones that brought them here. The Patches.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they brought them here.
From Europe?
No, yeah, from wherever Poland.
Poland. Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize. I just figured they came here to get away from.
They actually brought
things.
them here and gave them a place to live.
Wow.
And they gave them that house right down.
And that was the
That
house
old
that was
house
on
that's falling
Beaver
down.
Dam. Yeah, that fell down. Yeah.
That was a
Okay,
beautiful home.
Mm-hmm.
I know just about everybody that's lived there. It used to
And
be
that's where
really-
Billy and his
now it's
sister.
all fallen down. I
Billy
remember
and his
being
sister
there
were
when Billy
born
was
there.
there. Billy was born there. My sister was already born.
Mm-hmm.
She was about 6 years old
Oh, that's right. She was older.
because I remember she used to stop at the house and play with. I had a big doll house,
Mm-hmm.
and she would get off. She would come from school and walk down the road. She was walking home, and she would stop and play with her doll house for hours before she would go home. I always remember Elizabeth. Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she was really.
nice little
I
girl.
got to meet her. She was very sweet. After the Pearsons is when, from the Pearsons, it went to. Oh my God.
Walsh. Yeah.
No.
Doc.
Billy. Oh my God. Jean Bell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jean.
Well, they
Jean
worked
Bell
for
and-
us before Walsh.
Yes.
Well, in that time frame, then Walsh
Right.
bought it, and then they worked for him for a while.
Okay.
But Wanda didn't work for him. That's how. And then she started working for Stanley when he came on board.
So after, so it was you all, and then Jean Bell and oh my
Garnet
gosh,
Ryan.
Laura
Garnet Ryan.
Garnet Ryan. Gosh. And then
Her
Walsh.
husband was the one that actually helped build the firehouse because he was a mason.
Nelson Ryan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And also
He
the
built Cook Shack
Right.
too up on the horse road.
right that his partner was McClellan,
Hmm.
Ray McClellan.
And then Dr. Granger
Yeah.
bought the building, bought everything from Walsh. And that's when Stanley
When
Lickey
Stanley started working
Senior
there.
started.
Well, what happened was when they sold the farm down there. Well, when Granger sold the farm,
Okay.
he kept the house for Stanley,
Hmm.
but he said, well, I'll put you in the store and I'll give you a job.
Hmm.
That's why he says, I'll buy the store and put you in there so that you will have a place to work.
And then
So
Dr.
Stanley
Granger
had just been living off of his farming work.
Yeah.
prior
with
to
Dr.
that.
Granger.
Because he worked for Dr.
And,
Granger.
and do you remember meeting Stanley for the first time?
Oh, yeah, we knew Stanley. Actually, Karen went with Stanley Jr.,
What was Small World?
but they were young. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And, but she would always go down there and play.
Mhm.
And I knew knew of them,
But you
around.
didn't really get to know him until he
they
probably
bought
came
the-
to
you're
bought
right,
the
you're
store. Oh,
close.
okay. Because it's
You're
not like he
close
lived
to-
that far away, but yeah.
Well, my kitty cat, when we built in this house, it's a black and white cat. It was a male. And he was terrible. He jumped up there and knocked that mirror down. But anyway, that's beside the point. He would run off. He slept with Karen. Karen loved him. It was a great big black cat.
Mhm.
Black and white, I think he was white. He would go to Granger's because they had a lot of cats down there. A lot of female cats. And he would go stirring down there. And we would go get him and bring him
It's
home.
far.
And we would get him and bring him home. That's nothing. He wouldn't stay home. He'd go back to Stanley's barn. He loved Stanley's barn. I said, okay, you can have him, Stanley. He goes, he's no longer ours because he doesn't like us anymore. But he didn't live with Stanley. He just with the barns and the barn cats.
Yeah. Well, I do know a story of Stanley Jr. when he was really little that, when Stanley Sr. would go off to work from that farmhouse to go work on, Dr. Granger's farm. Stanley Jr. always wanted to go with him, even like 2, 3 years old. This young thing was like running down the driveway wanting to go with Stanley Sr. to go to work. It's
I
always
know.
so
And he would come here and see Karen, and they would have parties in the basement, kid parties. And he would come here. Oh my.
Stanley was using draft horses, right? To farm. Was that actual, or was that just for the maintaining the practice of using draft horses? Did he actually
I
use
think in
them
the
for
beginning,
production?
they had used draft horses, I believe, I'm sure.
Because I think when Dr. Granger sold the farm, he did not want to get rid of those draft horses, so that's why they stayed on Stanley's property after the Grangers sold.
No, they
the
actually
farm.
used them, I think.
Yeah, on the farm, but I
Yeah.
think when Dr. Granger sold the farm,
Right,
he loved coming out to visit
And then
those
Stanley-
horses.
He would plow everybody's gardens around.
Mhm.
When you went to garden plowed, you called Stanley, and he would come plow the gardens.
And Dr. Granger actually kept a place, my old office, the efficiency upstairs, that was Dr. Granger's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He
because
stayed
he
in-
loved it out here.
Oh,
and
my Lord. But his wife,
he
did not like
he
it
did
out
not
here
like
at
it out
all.
here, no.
she didn't even visit the farm very
Yeah.
often. Yeah.
But he had his own little space that he could come to.
And he was a
upstairs.
doctor at Children's Hospital.
Yeah, he was a nice man.
He was a
really
very notable doctor
Mhm.
for DC. But his wife, she didn't want any parts of it.
So are there any other characters that we haven't really thought about or mentioned?
Well, Grattan was the one they called Grattan
Mhm.
that lived in the in the post office building.
Oh, yes.
In the back of it,
Mm-hmm.
there was a building part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a room back there, and he slept there. But
But he
would
pick
go
up
to
the mail? He would go pick up the mail, right? Would he
no,
go
no,
pick up the
no,
mail?
no, not Grattan.
Okay.
Frank Pierce.
Oh, he would go into Percival to pick up
Yeah.
mail, right? Yeah.
But anyway, Grattan would go down to the waterfalls down below Gills, down. He followed the creek on that.
Mhm.
I've got pictures of the fall right there. I'll
Mhm.
show you.
Mhm.
He would take his bath, and Papa would give him a cake of soap. He'd go down there and take his bath underneath of the falls, because they didn't have access to
Yeah.
a bathroom or anything
Right.
down there, water. And I always remember them talking about that. And also, he had a mouse. He wore bibbed overalls. I can see him now. And he was back in the store with Pomp, and he had the mouse got in his pants. And he talked real funny anyway. And he grabbed him by the him, and he called him. He says, I'll kick you, you asked me. But he didn't say ask me. And Pomp always laughed about him talking about the mouse. And was hold on to the mouse within his pants. So I guess he acquired that from down where he slept. But he was so funny. And then Oscar was the other one, and he lived in let's see, the Borger house. Yeah.
On the lake property.
No, the next house up. The
Okay.
first house on
Okay.
right going up. Borger's house.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Border's house, which is
Okay,
Scott's house.
that's where there was Lot Brown lived there,
Mhm.
and she lived there by herself. So she took Rosker in because the two boys, were out, just no place to go.
Right.
So she took him and raised him,
Mhm. I remember that.
and he worked for her, and she
Mhm.
took good care of him. They both were kind of mentally deranged, like.
Mhm.
And anyway, they were born down there at Charlie Underwood's house. That was where the Heflins lived
Mhm.
when they were born.
Mhm.
But something happened whether they died or what, I don't know. They were displaced.
Right.
And that's when Mary Pearson took Grattan, even though he didn't live in their house,
Mhm.
but he lived in
He
the,
lived in that
yeah,
building.
they put him there. And then Oscar was in the other place.
Well, but I think there's other stories too. Even when Mary Warner took in the young man whose parents, the
Oh, that was
mother killed the
Lindsay
husband.
Yule.
Yule.
And he was up there in the house that burned up the top of the hill.
Yep.
And his parents,
The wife killed the husband.
yes.
So
And
he
then
was on
Bob
his
Griffith
own.
took him in
Yeah.
and raised him. But his name was Lindsay Yule.
Yeah, because he just passed away in the last few years.
Yeah, it was in the paper. I think I
Mhm.
have the obituary.
But didn't he end up with Mary Warner?
Yeah, he came back there.
Yeah, he ended up.
They took
living-
care of
yeah,
him.
they took
Of course,
care of him.
after Bob couldn't.
I just think, I mean, with those stories, it just reminds me of the true saying of it takes a village, and people would step up and take care of these
Oh, yeah.
kids if something happened to their parents. Which I always love the stories.
But they were the two, what they call characters.
The characters.
Uh-huh.
Probably one of the only stories I'm thinking of is when Robert Duvall lived in Butcher's Run, and they used to bring in ringers for the baseball game up on
Oh,
the
yeah,
horse
they
show
used to play
grounds.
on the horseshoe ground.
When they would
He
play
was
the
really one of-
volunteers for the fire department.
I remember when he first moved here, and he came in the store, and he bought a broom and something else. And I said, "What are you gonna do with that? You know you're not gonna use it." And he says, "Oh, yes, I am." And so then his friend from England sent him a saddle, and it came in the mail. And so he came in the post office. He always used my glasses. He never brought his glasses, so I gave him my glasses. And he came in the post office and sat on the floor and opened that box. He hadn't signed for it or anything because it was custom, and he had to sign for it. And I said, "Well, go ahead, and I'll take care of that after you do your thing."
Mhm.
Well, he finished opening it up and everything. He was said for it was his friend from England. And I said, "Well, you'll have to pay customs." He gave me that saddle. I'm not paying customs. I said, "Well, if you're going to take it out of the post office, you'll have to, or I will, because you've got to have customs. It's got to be paid, mailed in."
Mhm.
And I said, "I have to do a money order for that."
Mhm.
And so anyway, so of course he paid.
That's
And,
good.
So he took the saddle out, but I always remember him sitting on the floor in the post office, opening that box that had his saddle in. It came from England,
Mhm.
but I always laughed about it.
And then sometimes he would sit on the porch, and he would have some of his country music friends that were out there.
Well, they
and-
came in the post office when I broke my arm. I was standing there at the post office, and here came Willie Nelson and
More Hannah?
Waylon Jennings.
Waylon
Waylon
Jennings.
Jennings.
And his wives would be standing sometimes they come in, stand by the showcase there back by the post office.
Mhm.
But anyway, they would sing to me because they felt so sorry for me having chaos. But anyway, but they were just
That's a
wonderful.
great
And
story.
he'd have parties over at his house.
Mhm.
Wanda, I think, went to some of the parties.
Mhm.
And Buck and Tracy.
Mhm.
I never went over, but they came. They had a
Sounds like it
blast.
was a lot of fun. I wish I could have seen some of the baseball games, but
Oh, they were
It
fun.
was softball, and
softball.
and I remember Ben Hoddle always playing in his cowboy boots
Oh yeah,
with his green clothes on.
Right. Oh my gosh.
yeah, that was really fabulous. But
There was a legend. I don't know whether it's true or not because I didn't witness it, but I would go into the store and ask Wanda Noel for the Waylon Jennings roast beef sandwich because when she was allegedly putting the roast beef on the sandwich, she was staring at him just going like this, continuing to put roast beef on the sandwich.
because the Waylon Jennings
Yeah.
sandwich. Yeah, I remember when she did that. She was just absolutely fabulous. But they were the nicest people. And they would come in this great big limousine.
Mhm.
You would look up and see this great big limo going down there. You know who was in there was
Mhm.
in. But it was always fun to watch them come and go over there. Well, Mary Evelyn, her parents,
George, Mary.
that's where she was born and raised.
In Butcher's Run?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
But back then it was just half of it. That was
Oh.
before they added on.
Oh, added on to the house.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And but she was born and raised there, and I remember they always talk about Polly was her mother's name.
Mhm.
And she'd be out on the porch drying her hair, hanging it over, wash her hair and then hang over there
Mhm.
drying it. And so this one guy used to visit Mary Evelyn, and he said, "I wasn't sure who I was until I saw you behind or something." Anyway, he was standing there looking at her and from that angle.
Right.
But they used to tease him about that all the time. That's how he met her mother.
Oh.
But it was funny. But I remember when Marilyn's kids were small, Roberta and Sally. And they would leave him over there and come over to the house. But Don at that time had rabbits,
Mm-hmm.
and he had them in one of those wire pens,
Mm-hmm.
long runs. And Sally would get in there. Yeah, it was Sally. And she would crawl back in there with the rabbits
Mm-hmm.
and play with the rabbits. It was the funniest thing that she would always come up to the house. And then Roberta, when she was real small, would come and sit on this. There was a step that went into the house, in the yard rather,
Mm-hmm.
and she would be sitting right there. She didn't have a stitch of clothes on. She would run off from the house and was sitting there. She might have been 4,
Mm-hmm.
3,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I know she was quite young.
Mm-hmm.
And she was sitting there.
She was making a statement.
And finally she would go home. But they didn't like hose. It's like, oh, no.
I have a nephew.
But if you tell her today,
Great
she'd have
nephew
a
like
fit.
that.
But yeah, I remember when they did. And I remember when they sold it and kept it in patch. Anyway, I remember when my brother, Tom, was in high school.
Mhm.
And that was his first job. He went over there he worked under the bricklayers and things like that.
Mhm.
And used to carry the mud or the wood or whatever necessary.
Mhm.
And that's had his first job.
Mhm.
Well, they said he never start growing until he started working over there,
No.
doing manual labor and doing work.
Doing all
And then he
lifting.
started getting taller
Yeah.
and bigger, but he stayed small a long time.
Mhm. Late growth spurt.
Uh,
It was a late growth spurt
Yes,
for him
uh-huh.
and getting stronger.
and it did as soon as he started doing some actual work like that.
Well,
But he played football too for Lincoln.
oh,
And I remember
funny,
when they
Lincoln
played,
football team.
there was Lincoln High School.
Yeah, when it was high school to have a football team. Yeah.
And then they played Leesburg.
Oh.
Leesburg and Lincoln didn't get along very well. They were out to kill. I mean, literally out to kill. When they played, you had to have almost the cops there if you had one.
Oh my God.
But they
Quite
always
the
had
rivalry.
a doctor was always on the scene. And sure enough, they gave my brother, this guy gave him a kidney punch.
Ooh.
And I mean, literally meaning to
Oh.
get rid of him.
Mhm.
So the doctor happened to be there and took care of
Oh
him.
my goodness.
But he almost killed him right there on the football
All
field.
that for football.
Mhm.
Well,
Carla Warner told us about Uncle Harry
Oh, and
doing
Warren, oh my.
buck dancing on the porch of her
I have
store.
got a picture of him sitting on the porch.
I always heard about him sitting on the porch. I've never heard of him dancing on the porch. So I'm sorry we don't have a picture of him dancing.
He could
on
have
the porch.
danced too, but he was so funny. Everybody loved Harry Warner. He was the man of the town. But anyway, when Hursty was 4, maybe, he went up there and Harry always stuck his hand out for him to do like this
Mhm.
and give him 5. And Hursty went up there and he said, "Hey boy, give me 5." And Hursty went and he stopped. He said, "Go ahead and hit me because it won't wear off." He was saying like he was going to get black if you touched him. I don't know whether Hursty ever thought of that or what he was thinking, but I know he went down to hit him like this and he stopped.
Mhm.
And he said, "Go ahead and hit it, boy.
Mhm.
It won't rub off."
So Harry Warner was Mary's husband?
No,
No,
his brother was.
his brother. Okay, so Mary's brother-in-law was Harry Warner. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I've heard the stories of him sitting on the porch.
Oh, Harry was. Everybody loved Harry.
Mhm.
If you were to look back at all of your time here in Philomont, when would you say, in what period was the highlight of your life in Philomont?
When I used to ride ponies, when I go up in the barn, up there at what was Rust's house then. It was guy Rust's house,
Mhm.
and then of course that's next to Old Phil's house,
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
barn where those guys from DC bought it.
Right.
I used to ride horses out there all the time. Madam jumps there in the front, but Nancy would show in horse shows, and she was a top rider.
Nancy Dillon. Yeah.
Nancy Griffith,
Graham.
No, Griffith.
Griffith. Oh.
Bob Griffith's daughter, but guy
Oh.
Russ raised her, which was he was her uncle,
Right.
and she went to all the horse shows. Very reputable riding.
Oh,
And I rode in one, the Piedmont Hunt, a junior Piedmont Hunt.
Hmm.
And one year, that was the highlight of my life riding.
And how old were you then?
I was, see, when the horse threw me, I was a senior. It was prior to that, probably a freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
But I rode horses up there for a long time when I was
Mhm.
younger. And I used to tutor Nancy a little bit too.
Mm.
But but anyway, when the horse ran off, that's the big story was she had been up to Madison Square Gardens, bought this new pony, called him Red Wing. And he ran away with her, but she didn't tell me when she was up in Madison Square when she bought it. And so then she brought him down, and we had an apple tree down there in the house, and it was a big, and all the kids would crawl up in the apple tree, and we put initials on the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and we would sit up there and talk. We might be up there hours, just kids talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one day, when she came back with this pony, she rode up to me and she said, "Oh," she says, "Laura, you've got to ride my new pony." And I said, "Oh, I'd love to." Down the tree, I scrambled and got on the pony. Little did she tell me that there would be a problem, but I don't think she realized it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went up to the edge of the road, I got up to the highway part. I said, "I'll go down to church and turn him around and come back." Oh, I got up there, we galloped down there, not too bad. Went around the church, when Bob had a barbed wire fence or whatever right across where Bobby's house was.
Mm-hmm.
It reared like this. It came back down, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm in for it." So when he turned and straightened up, he started down the road here, pretty fast. And Nancy was standing in the road going like this, trying to stop him.
Mm-hmm.
She had to move because he wasn't going to stop
Oh,
her.
no.
He skidded in the road, made skid marks in the road,
Mm-hmm.
but he went on down, foot of the hill, down to squirrels. And I was trying to turn him in to the barn
Mm-hmm.
because that's where he stayed a lot, where he originated from up the top of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
But the barn up there's where he was living.
Right.
But I wanted to put him in Bob Griffith's, move shorter. So I tried to turn him, and he didn't want to turn. But anyway, at that time, Bob Griffith lived there and his wife,
Mhm.
Catherine, and they had a drain from the kitchen into this hole right on the road, a big mucky hole.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a big hole. And so when the pony went to do the turn, he was going too fast to make the turn,
Mhm.
so he went in the hole.
Oh.
He did a total flip like this. I was down under him in that hole, and what saved me somewhat.
Right.
But he still took my jeans here and just tipped them here, chipped the bone here,
Oh.
and the back hoof hit me in the back of the head and laid that open.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know it. So I got up. I was full of black muck. So when and Catherine, there was Nancy's mother lived there, Bob Griffith's wife.
Mhm.
She came out. She says, "Oh, Nancy, get in here. Let me wash her." She's it's Nancy.
Oh.
Well, you know who I was. And so she washed me up somewhat. Took some of it off. And then we talked. She knew it was me. But Nancy was still at the house. She was coming down the road. But anyway, after she finished cleaning me up, I walked across the field, to the house. And I didn't want to tell Mom, so I had to sneak in the house because she told me not to get on the pony.
Mhm.
And so I had to sneak in the house and go upstairs to my bedroom. And I got up there, and I still didn't know it was her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to clean up a little bit, put clean clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back downstairs, and I felt kind of funny, but I lay on the couch there, and Mom says, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, but there's something wrong. I got something up in the back of my head." Well, she looked, it was massive blood, just where it bled, a lot of hole. And it was a big hole right here. I still got the scar. But anyway, where the horse kicked me in the back, his hind hoofs hit me and going over
Yeah.
top of me.
Yeah.
But
You-
anyway,
you heard the question. This was the highlight of your life.
it could have been the dead end of me. But anyway, she said, "Okay, you lay real still." She cleaned me up a little bit more. She said, "When your dad comes in from work, he'll take you to the doctor."
Mm-hmm.
So when he came in, she rushed me right out. We went out to Dr. It was Dr. Oliver's at that time. There was before then Sampson and another doctor. It was Sampson and another doctor together.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Dr. Sampson.
In Percival or?
Mhm, Percival.
Yeah.
Because they had 3 doctors there at the time.
It was a highlight until this part. This was the low light of the highlight.
And so then anyway, he shaved around a little bit. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go to school tomorrow. You've shaved my head." I was a senior, would have been a senior. Because it was just before school started back. Anyway, so he said it's been too long
Mm-hmm.
to stitch it.
Yeah.
So I had 3 blood clots that he pushed out, which I had a chance to go in. Each time he'd push one out, I fainted.
Oh my
Then he
God.
pushed out until he did 3. Then he used clamps, whatever they used at that time,
Oh.
and clamped it shut. And then he taped it real
Oh my
good.
goodness.
And then they brought me home. Well, I wanted to go to school. Well, I can't go to school. You shaved my head. Well, I couldn't go anyway
Right. Right.
because I had a concussion and
Oh, my
all this
goodness.
mess. But it was about a week I was able to go back
Oh.
after I got straightened. I was lucky I
Mm.
got back then, but I
You
was
were
very,
lucky. You were
very
lucky.
determined to do that. But anyway, he said 15 more minutes, I would have been dead. I would have been
Oh
gone
my goodness.
because of the clots.
Mm.
And had they not, they pushed them out.
Hmm.
Had they gone to the
Right.
brain, it would have
right.
been it. But he was able to get. There were 3 of them.
So was he your regular family doctor?
Yes.
And that was in Percival.
How did you get from here to Lincoln for high school?
Bus.
Oh, they had one.
Yeah, a bus. And we would be on that bus an hour
Oh, right.
because they picked up all the kids.
Everybody.
Not like they do today. They make 6 buses going in
Yeah.
different directions,
Mhm.
right in the town. Right.
Mhm.
But no, we had one bus that circulated. I think he even rode with the high school kids.
Probably. And I think
And
they
then
did
later
that
on,
back
they
then.
split us. Then when they would branch off to the other grade school.
Mhm.
But it was wild. But I love. And then his name was Red Wing. And afterwards, she told me, "Oh, he ran away with me in Madison Square when I first got him. Well, thanks a lot."
You should have told me that beforehand.
But she was hoping that he would. But they said he was allergic to leather or something. They wasn't real sure what the problem was with the horse.
Mhm.
But he was a big red, reddish color, whatever
Mhm. Mhm.
pony would look like when he was reddish.
Right.
But I mean, he was big for a pony.
Did you ever
And
calm
I just
down?
rode him. I thought it was the most wonderful thing I ever saw. I used to ride a big black pony that she had up there in the barn.
Mhm.
And then there was another one that was called Cappy. He got him named Cappy because it was Captain Smith that she bought him from.
Mhm.
And then she had King Farley, was from another farm.
Wow.
And that was a smaller pony. I used to ride that one more than I did any other
Right.
because I didn't ride Red Wing anymore.
Yeah, I would say
But
that.
I did ride the other 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
But pretty much Red Wing. He was a smaller. And then I rode a black and white pony that I rode in the hunt with a Piedmont hunt,
Mhm.
and his name was Donald Duck. He was a smaller pony. And what was another thing? When we would ride, we had a hunt
Mhm.
without a fox.
Mhm.
But when they were riding along, and when they put the saddle on him, they blow up.
Mhm.
So you can't get the girth real tight.
Mhm.
So the saddle went underneath of him, and here he was with me sitting on the strap. The bottom of the saddle was under him.
Uh-huh.
He didn't like it, so he wanted to kick.
Oh my God.
But anyway, I turned his head against the fence. There was a fence, there was a fence, and these big guys, head of the hunt, came over and I got off and he fixed the saddle,
fixed
tightened it up, and I got back on, finished the ride,
Oh,
and then
good
we
for
darned if
you.
we didn't pick up a fox after that,
Oh.
and had to chase a fox. But we were going wide open, and when we come to the jumps,
Mhm.
my pony was too tiny to jump. The jumps are big, and he was a little pony,
Mhm.
not real little, but so I would crawl up on the jump, and then pull him, take the reins and pull him over. You jump by yourself, but you can't jump with me.
Right.
But I always
Well,
went
and
over the whole foot.
And back then, imagine all the open spaces that you guys had to ride.
Oh my
in.
God, we would ride 15 miles. We rode all the way straight from Percival, all the way across country here, and to Philomont. It was 15 miles.
Oh my
It
God.
was from the golf course. We went
Right.
there.
Gosh, everything was wide open.
And that was the Piedmont hunt you were with.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know you were a fox hunter.
Did you
I
just do
didn't
it that
ride that
one
much.
time?
No,
Oh,
not
just-
fox hunting, but it was the most wonderful thing that I thought I would ever do.
Mhm.
Ride in a fox hunt.
Yeah.
But I really, really loved it. So
Yeah.
I used to love to ride. I'd rather ride. I had to sneak to ride because my mother said no.
Right.
And no wonder I was hurt all the time because I was not
Because you were
listening.
sneaking around. You were
But
sneaking around.
anytime there was a horse or pony or anything around, I was on it.
Right. Oh my goodness. Never knew that about you. I will have
I used to
say.
pray for a pony when I was little. And when Christmas was over, we'd have to have Christmas, but I would sneak out of the house and run around and look around where the cellar is.
Right.
Because
See
I
if
always
there was
thought
a
they were
pony
going to
down
put my pony in there somewhere. I'm going to find my pony.
there.
I never had a pony. But Bob Griffiths was going to let me have one of the ponies down there.
Well, it
but
was
they,
nice that you always had access. You
But
were
they
so
wouldn't
big.
let me have it.
Yeah.
But I would go down there and ride.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, he had put a brush, he had the jumps down there,
Mm-hmm.
and he put a lot of brush on it for his horses for him to jump.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to high jump. That was another thing. I used to jump on foot. And I would try to jump his horse jumps.
Mm-hmm.
And I hooked my foot in the brush, was going over and landed on the ground. And he just picked me up and carried me out, all fainted to the house, and let me come to. But another thing was really interesting that I did that I liked so much when I was come in from school.
Mhm.
I would go down to weather was warming up. It was about probably May, and I would go down to the woods. It was now Gill's woods,
Mhm.
and we would cut our poles. I would cut 2 poles, standing poles, and then I would drive the nails in that. But then I would get a cross, small one that would go across for me to jump over,
Mhm.
and then he would give me a pole vaulting stick. I would rather pole vault than eat.
Oh my goodness.
And I used to out jump. I would challenge any boy in town that I could pole vault higher than they could. And I did. My brothers, they couldn't even touch me.
Huh.
So I went to school one day, and I was in the 6th grade, maybe. Mrs. Simpson was my teacher, and I went out, and I told this guy we should talk about me pole vaulting. He said, "Shh, you can't pole vault." I said, "Meet me at lunch. Meet me at recess. I'll jump you at recess." So there we went. He went over. He said, "No, you can't do it." I got my pole vault stick and I put him into shame. I went over and I did. I beat him high jumping or also in pole vaulting.
And did they have that in the schools back then?
Yeah, they had
did.
what they call it, where they participated in sports and
Yeah,
things
like
that.
the
A
games.
track meet.
Like a track, yeah, track meet.
It's something like that,
track
and
meet, yeah.
also they called it something else.
Mm.
But anyway, they would have like field day. That was what it was. Field
Oh,
day.
yeah, field day.
And then you would go and participate in all different activities.
Right.
But then they dug you pits like that for you to land in.
Mhm. Yeah.
I landed on. I didn't dig in the pit. I was coming down on a hard surface road.
Yeah.
Not hard surface, but hard
Yeah, because they
ground.
had those
The
big
road was
mats,
grassy, but
or whatever.
yeah. And then once you came down, you knew that you had landed in a pit.
Mhm.
But one of mine didn't have bad ankles,
Yeah.
or broken ankles, or something.
You were quite the athlete and had to
It didn't
do a
nothing
lot of
bother me
spills.
up until something actually
Mhm.
sad,
Mhm.
awful happened to me. Other than that, I was very active.
Yeah.
Because I could run and high jump and pole vaulting and play ball.
Mhm.
We used to have ball down here too.
Yeah.
There's a
Where?
lot.
Oh, on this field
The
here?
kids they'd come from all over,
Yeah.
the boys and girls. We'd have a softball team.
Right here?
Yeah,
Mhm.
right in that lot there.
Right.
And baseball,
Mhm.
football. I used to play football with them too.
Well, that's what happens when you have 3 brothers. That's what happened
Yeah.
with me. You just tend to do what they do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And whatever they did, I could do better.
Yeah, well, I can't say that.
I challenged them all the time.
Well, speaking of getting beat up, and do you mind telling me the story about leaving the store and I guess crossing the road and getting hit by the
Oh, when I
car?
was run over, you mean?
Backed over.
That was a month before I retired. I was getting ready and it was so funny. Those girls, they would tell me they worked for you. What were
Mhm.
their name?
I will have to think about that because I'm trying to remember. Victoria called
Yeah.
me, and I
One
can't
of them
think-
was standing on the porch, and every night that I would leave, they would say, "Oh, Laura, please be careful. Please, Miss Pearson, please, would you please, Miss Laura?" They call me.
It might have
would
been
you-
Adrian. Adrian might have been there, but I know Victoria.
It was one of
there.
the little ones, young
Yeah,
ones.
Victoria.
Anyway, she was standing there and she was saying, Miss Pearson, they said Miss Laura. Everybody called me Miss Laura. She said, "Please be careful." I said, "I've crossed that road for almost 50 years and
yeah.
nobody ever hit me yet."
Oh,
And so that didn't happen right that night.
yeah.
But another night, it was raining. Oh my Lord, it was raining. It was dark. It was 6 o'clock and it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when Mary Ann
Right.
she was teaching Zumba church.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came down and was going to make a left to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had already stopped
Mm-hmm.
to make her left.
Mm-hmm.
So did I looked at her, and I taillights, so everything was safe. So I started across the road. And just as I got midway of the road, I looked and I saw her coming.
Yeah.
She had put it in reverse
Mhm.
instead of going forward. And when she came, I saw it, and I said, "She's going to hit me," but there's nothing I can do about it.
Yep.
I had my pocketbook. I had the thing that carried everything. I'm set like a little bag that I carried everything in, like my mail and
Mhm.
everything in my one carry home.
Yep.
That was on this arm. I had my umbrella here, and like this, and I put everything up against me just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And when she hit me, I went over to the left, like
Yeah.
I fell on my left side.
Yeah.
Because I had no control of anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch myself or anything, it was just a solid.
Yeah.
Flat.
Run on the
When I
asphalt.
hit my head in the gravel.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful. But I had a concussion lift. It got me right here.
Mhm.
But anyway, they called the ambulance and they had the backboard and the neck brace they put on me. Took me up on the store porch because it was raining so hard.
Mhm.
And so they could put it on the stretcher there. And my umbrella has been found to this day.
Hmm.
But anyway, I don't know whatever happened to it because I had it in my, like this. But my pocketbook, I was able to take care of.
Mhm. Mhm.
But anyway, and you were there in the store.
Yeah, I got called. Like I got there when you were being put in the ambulance, actually.
And they took me to Leesburg. And I said, well, look, it's okay. But I've got to go to work in the morning and you've got to hurry up and get me out of here because I'm going to work. And that's what I told him when they picked me up. I said, and she was crying, laying on top of me, crying, Marianne was.
Well,
And I said, Marianne, I looked at him and I said, look, leave me alone, take care of her.
yeah.
She was the
He
one that
was
did all the
upset.
ball and I was just laying there waiting for him to help me out of there. But anyway, she was laying on top of me, just a crying. And to this day, she's still upset.
Mhm.
But when I got down there, though, when they examined me at the hospital, I had on my jacket, all my clothes, pants, everything, shoes, socks. I was saturated
With water.
water
Yeah.
from the rain
Yeah.
and everything. And I was took me in there, put me out on the table somehow or another. Then they were examining me,
Mhm.
but they didn't do anything. They didn't take any X-rays. Oh, they said, "Well, do you hurt anywhere?" No, I've got to go. Just hurry up and get through with me. I've got to go home now. I fussed at them the whole time. They were trying. No wonder they let me go home. But next day I went back to my doctor. And I went back up in the hospital because I didn't get to stay home,
Right.
and I never got to go back to work.
No.
I never even got to pick up a pencil off my desk.
You never went back in the store after that.
No, not one time. I was over there putting mail in the box, and he came out and got me. He led me in the store. You're going to look. He said, "You don't have to look at the." I said, "I'm not." He said, "You don't have to look at the post office. Just look what I've done."
Oh, Drew said
Drew
that?
did that.
Oh.
The only time I've ever been down there, he drew me in there one night.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was around.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Actually, he did tell me a story that he brought you in one night when nobody was around.
And I've
I
never
do
been
remember
back
that.
since.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see the post office in any manner
Mm-hmm.
because I knew they had disrupted everything that I made and did in there.
Right.
And why would I want to see something?
Right.
I didn't. I
Right.
couldn't do it.
Well, we missed you. We missed you after all that happened.
Well, I
so.
miss the people.
Yes. Well, that's like me. People ask if I
did
miss the
business.
store. I said I miss most of the people. I said, but I miss the building. I miss the building.
But I didn't miss the work because I said, I tell you why. It's no longer a post office.
Yeah.
They have disrupted. When I went out of there, that's when the bottom dropped out of the post office.
Well, I
They
think in
said-
general because it also
Well,
went
they said one
part-time after
thing.
that.
They said, well, you can go back to work if you want to,
Mhm.
but you have to go down to Fairfax if we're down in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I walked across the road for 50 years and you're going to make me drive
Yeah.
at my age.
Yeah.
I said, no. I
But that's
said,
when we had the big fight about it also going part-time.
Yeah.
versus
and then they
full-time.
told me I couldn't work 8 hours anymore.
Yeah.
I'd have to work 4.
Right.
The post office would be shut down
Mhm.
from 9 to
We
No,
opened 9 to 1.
9 to
Yeah.
1. I just said, no, what would I go back for?
Yeah.
And everything's going to be
Yeah,
out of
it got messed
Purcellville.
up.
Nothing's going to be out of my office anymore. All the business is out of Purcellville.
Mhm.
All the bookkeeping stuff. All I do is punch in the figures.
Mhm.
They take care of it. They
Mhm.
do all the everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, that's a waste of time.
No, and hopefully we can keep it a little longer though. I do like having my PO box up there.
Oh my Lord, I'd fight for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you know, it's just been very
It's,
disruptive.
well, and I think that's probably one of the many big changes you saw, whether it was that
That
or
was the
the
major.
volunteer fire department no longer being volunteer. I mean,
Moving my
changes
firehouse.
from- Yeah.
I idolized my firehouse. I lived with that firehouse.
Yeah.
Because I have so many memories.
Oh yeah. I mean, I only dealt with that firehouse for 18 years, but it was the place to be.
Right.
It
I've
was
known it.
lots of memories.
Yeah.
And a lot of hard work and a lot of fundraisers and
And one time we had a real bad storm and it was really freezing that night. And so Junior went over and he had a blowtorch.
that's with the new truck when the truck was new, when the
Yeah,
original truck was new.
In 56.
Yeah.
Anyway, he slept under the fire truck with his blowtorch,
Mm.
over the one keeping it from freezing.
So.
Yeah, and the
thank you.
thoughts of them doing something to the firehouse is very mind-boggling. It just tears me up.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are saving the horseshoe ground is, yes, good.
Well, we hope. We're still trying to find an alternate site.
But I do not like them putting it to other locations.
Yeah.
Like
It belongs
Laurel
here. It belongs here.
I know.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind. That's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, is
Yeah.
the fire department.
Yeah. I agree.
Because we were the beginning, the
Mhm.
originals. And I just,
Yeah.
just like part of the family gone, it's
Yep. I agree. I agree.
some nights I review houses, the old houses, and when I went in them,
Mhm.
and I walk in and I can remember where this was, that was, and there's
Mhm.
different houses. And I don't want to forget any of that,
Mhm.
I try to remember the old people that lived here,
Mhm.
and the old house, new houses I haven't been in, but the old ones that were here back when I was growing up.
Mhm.
When we would play captain, as I called it, it was like a hide and go seek. We had teams. We would go all over Philomont. People loved you dearly. They knew us as kids and knew our names. And come on in. We can't come in. We were just hiding here.
Mhm.
And then they were going to come find us. But that's what we did. Everybody's house was your house.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we were everybody's kids,
Yeah.
And
That
everybody knew us family.
sounds like a wonderful childhood. Sounds like it was very nice.
Like I say, I wouldn't trade it. I love DC. And when I lived in my aunt's, I used to play croquet like crazy. I bowled on 2 legs down there.
Mhm.
And with my uncle, and was a Jewish league.
Mhm.
Well, and it was for this shopping center that they had there,
Mhm.
and I bowled with them with my uncle. And anyway, when did all the when I would play play ball, play what's that? When I would
The
pitch
croquet?
the ball,
The croquet or bowling?
bowling, and I would always get strikes. I did. I'm gonna make a strike better than I could have to spare.
Is that duck pin or 10 pin?
10
But-
pins.
Had been.
No.
And it was like, so when we had the banquet for the Jewish people, it was a Jewish league,
Uh-huh.
and so then they gave out the awards, and they said, "Oh, Laura, she's got to get it because she got spares, but you got strikes, and it's easier to get a strike than it is a spare."
Mhm.
I said, "It takes 2 balls to get a spare. I can hit them with 1 ball." But anyway, they wanted to give it to her instead of me.
Oh.
I didn't get the award,
Oh.
but everybody knew.
Who was
should
the
have
better
gotten it.
bowler?
And I'll never will forget. And we had this banquet, and everything had to be blessed by the rabbi.
Mhm.
All this stuff I was learning the hard way.
But Personal never had a bowling alley, but did you ever go bowl in Leesburg?
Leesburg, yes.
Yeah, Leesburg had it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, my
loved-
mom was a big
used to
bowler.
bowl a lot down there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that was there because that's one thing you didn't have to go into Winchester for. You could go into Leesburg for
Right.
bowling.
but I used to love to bowl.
My
That was
mom
another
a
one,
big bowler.
Glencoe, and the other one was roller coasters. I would have slept on a roller coaster if they'd let me.
So you used to take the trolley out to Glen Echo?
Uh-huh.
Did you?
We used to still go out to Glencoe a lot. Ginger would
That's such a
drive
cool
out there
place.
a lot.
That is really. I've seen pictures. I've seen a lot of pictures of it.
And their roller coaster was getting kind of rickety when I last
Mhm.
rode it. But I rode it in Florida, and in Georgia, and I rode in wherever there was a place to go.
Right.
That's where I was. I got my driver's permit when Junior was taught me how to drive.
Hmm.
And we went down the road one day, and he said, "Well, why don't you drive?" I crawled over his lap, got in his lap, and I was learning to drive. I was small then.
We're making sure that people know the stories
Well,
about.
the old barn where we used to have where we played in the barn down there,
Mhm.
and when it got bad off, not safe,
Mhm.
we were still had all our stuff up there,
Mhm.
and it was so bad they wouldn't let us go up and get any of the things that we had accumulated,
Ah.
which was very sad. And when the barn burned, I cried the whole time they were burning it.
Aw.
They burned it down,
Oh.
and they also had a cornhouse there.
Mhm. Is that all on Guild property? You're talking
No,
about
it's
Bill's
on our
property?
property,
On your
this
property, okay.
And then we had the barn,
Uh-huh,
and when they had the chicken houses and toilet and all that stuff on that side,
mm-hmm,
and a garden.
mm-hmm,
My grandfather had a horse, and Junior used to keep his cow down to the house and
Mhm.
milked it from down there too
Mhm.
sometimes. Most time he brought it back to the house.
yeah,
But they had a barn here on this property.
right,
To this house, they had a barn and they had chicken house, toilet, all that kind of stuff in the back. But it was a full farm right here.
oh,
And a
no,
garden.
that was,
Because they did everything right from here.
everything was very self-sufficient.
And then Mr. Rector was next door
Mm-hmm,
in that house.
mm-hmm,
And his adjoining property, and he's what sold the property to them to Hearst Mill on, so
Mhm.
they could have that house and
yeah,
build his house.
mm-hmm.
And all that
Yeah.
was where they raised the cows.
No, that's one thing I learned is that everybody here was very, very self-sufficient. They
Oh,
needed
yes.
very little to go out and get for themselves.
I can remember it was very, very much, very nice. Enjoyed it.
And I think that might be one of the things we also talk about because I thought that was a really great learning experience in general.
Oh,
about
yes,
how
the whole
the
town
villages were very
All the old
self-sufficient.
houses and all the older people.
Yeah,
And
very
Like John
practical,
Underwood.
a lot of common sense. Just again, self-sufficient on very small plots of land.
yeah. Well, when they
So-
used to come out of DC, they get the train
Mm-hmm.
and they would go up to Bluemont
Vermont,
and they stay in that
the lodge, like a lodge.
Well, actually, though, and then what they use for a lumber place now,
Yes,
Okay.
where Epling
Yeah.
landscaping is.
they own that.
Yeah, that was a lodge.
That's where they had the dances.
Oh, that's what
And
had
the
the
bands,
dances. Yes,
And the bands would play in there.
I do remember that. I mean,
Yeah.
I do remember being told that.
And some of the old houses were out there. They
Mhm.
lived stayed in there overnight.
But I just feel like I remember this one house, I think when it was for sale, that they
Right there on
right
the
up
road.
this, on the
Yeah.
left-hand side, I think, going
Yeah,
up from
on the
there,
big
that they
house.
talked that was a lodge. And there was
Yeah.
probably more, but
There were several others.
I just remember
But
that
I do know
one.
they used to stay in Frank Pierce's house down here,
Mhm.
and because that was the Taverners owned that, and
Okay.
they used to have people to stay there.
Hmm.
And also that's where they played. See, that was a round porch on that house.
Yes.
And they would dance. They'd have dances there and play. Old Milton Lee was a black guy,
Mm-hmm.
and Mrs. Lake wrote in her thing that she wrote about him playing and what he played.
Mm-hmm.
And she always remember playing. Oh, but what was it? I forget the name of the song that he used to play. The last song that he played at the dance when they would go over. But they played right down here
Mm-hmm.
to that house, and they danced on the porch.
Yeah, the house that's to the left of the horse show ground used to have a wraparound porch.
They took all that down.
Yeah. Well, even the Sullivan's house used to have a 2-level wraparound porch.
Oh yeah, that was the Tavener house as well.
Mm-hmm.
My cousins lived in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
And Peg lived in there. I got a picture of her.
Yeah, I
with
have the
her car.
picture of Peg when she roomed there.
Yeah,
Yep.
and she lived there.
Yep.
But too bad they took that. Peg had the porch when she lived there. That porch,
must have
and we used to
been
run around there.
stunning.
We would
with the
run around
porch.
and play.
Yeah.
And then upstairs was like a porch out from the window. There was like a window that came, and there was like an upstairs porch.
Mm-hmm.
And Doris Faulkner used to go out on there, and when they would deliver her paper on bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
they would pitch her paper up on her level on the second
Mhm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't have to come downstairs to get her paper.
Did you have much contact with the Cockrells west of here, the big dairy farm?
Oh, the William Cockrell?
Mm-hmm.
No, Charles Underwood was very close to that one guy that passed away. And then
Charlie?
Yeah, and then he passed away after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they were so close.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come down and help Charles, but do things, and it was so sad about him.
Mm.
And his other brothers passed away too, with tractor accidents.
Just recently.
Uh,
Will. Do you mean Will?
The young one? Or
Yes.
his father?
Bill Cockrell?
Bill Cockrell, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew him as Bill when we first met, but then one day he came in and said, "Call me Will."
Oh.
Yeah. Because
Sorry, you'll
William
always
was
be
his
Bill to
father
me.
was William Cockrell.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's where.
But
Yeah,
he was
I'd like to
visited.
hear next time a little bit more about Peg and Junior because they're my neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh
And
my
the Longers
gosh.
and Betty Sue.
Wherever
and,
I was, Peg and Betty Sue
yeah,
and
and
one Barbara,
Bobby and
we were like a foursome. That was the church
yeah,
pillar, and
yeah.
Peg's been always close was used to live over where they call the Sticks over there, and you're going back to Unison, and I would love to go to her house. And there, and Mr. Thompson, they lived on Thompson property, and he had a great big horse. I guess is what they use, like a draft horse.
Right.
But when we settled, our legs never expanded.
Yeah,
We were sitting on top. There was one.
huge.
Peg and I would ride in the same saddle, or
Oh,
on the horse without a
Oh, my
saddle. Matter
goodness.
of fact, and we would go back to her house, and I used to love that. And I remember when lightning struck a barn over at Peg's, over there in the Sticks, as they call it,
Mhm.
Unison. And we sat there and watched, and you couldn't even touch the panes of the window pane. It was so hot.
Oh my goodness.
And Daisy would be there, put us in the. It was a hallway. They went, and it was upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So you go in there, it was dark,
Mm-hmm.
and every time there was a thunderstorm, they make us go in there and sit on the step. And I think that's why we have a fear of storms, because we were always so shielded
Mm-hmm.
like that with different ones,
Right.
and knowing seeing the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew lightning had struck the barn,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I used to love to go over there,
Yeah.
and
So
So
how old?
would you walk to Unison then?
no, Uncle Carlene, Peg's dad would take us over in his car, which he parked at the house and worked with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
They worked at the same place.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he would always take us over there, and I would stay with it. Oh, and another thing too, every time I wanted wanted to go over there,
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Daisy always cut my hair, Peg's mom, and she would give me a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And my hair wasn't growing fast enough because I wanted to go back. We'll see. Of course, I went in between, but mainly I would say, Mom, I need a haircut. I got to go. Aunt Daisy's got to cut my hair. But she always cut my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was still there, and we were little, and I remember she used to wash Peg and I. It was our baths
Mm.
and everything. But she treated me just like her daughter. Just
Yeah,
whatever she
well.
did for Peg, she did for me.
Yeah, well, you've known Peg for a really long time, so.
But it was wonderful because back then, of course, they had a garden, they had everything, and I remember that house just
Mhm.
like it was yesterday.
Mhm. So is the house still over there?
I can't answer that because everything's torn down, and I think it's still there, still gone.
So maybe it'd be nice if we could get
I'll have
Peg
to
over
ask
here
Peg.
to help with the stories next time.
You
but-
called Unison the Sticks. Was that because it was so far out, or was there some other reason?
far out and was in the woods, wooded area.
It is really in the woods too.
But they
really
used to call it lived out in the sticks. And
Yeah.
that's what they referred
Well, that's
to.
how we referred to Herndon. All right. Anything else that you can think of that I'm sure I'm
we
sure
have
we could
scratched
keep.
the surface.
I know,
There's
I
so
know.
much here.
You want to know anything?
Well, I think if anything, we might have to do this again. I might have to go back and think about the things that we talked about during the National Register work, and I'll even talk to Jane
Okay.
to see if maybe we could do a part 2 of this. And then now that Russ has heard the stories, maybe he can think a little bit about it as well. But I wanted to I was trying to touch upon things that we, some of the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure in this one we got the church and the community center and the store and the fire department.
I didn't mean to
Um,
ramble like I was.
No.
Sometimes
no.
I get started and don't want to stop.
No, but everything is linked. I mean, every story is linked to another story, so it's easy to do. So I think might have to do a little bit of maybe even watching this and taking
Mhm.
some notes of things that I was like, oh my gosh, I should have asked you this, or I should have
Yeah.
asked you that. So if you're up for it, we'd like to do a part 2, but
Well, I'm here.
yeah.